So I struggled for a while, especially working in full-time ministry for the past almost a decade now. I struggled a lot with trying to find ways to connect with my community in ways that are not like awkward and weird. And I ran into a book not too long ago that I actually shared now with two congregations on workplace evangelism. And I was really inspired by that book and really trying to get, the congregations to really understand the advantage that they have, especially working, a 9 to 5 or maybe even a business. Fast forward, I moved out here to Bakersfield, back to the Central Valley, and I started really getting into my own business. And I teach part of my business is teaching personal finance. And I remember one of my clients last year, who happens to also be related to my wife. I wasn't necessarily like going out of my way to try to, present the gospel to him, but ever so often in our discussions on personal finance, I would drop little nuggets here and there of gospel truths to show him that, the gospel is relevant to his life and it can help him even in this area, right? And over a period of time, he got, more curious of what the gospel has to say about him and in his life, and he already knew that he already desired to have a relationship with God. He already desired to have a relationship with Jesus, and he was very weirded out by other religious groups. So he didn't have a really good experience. So because of that, having those conversations, it began to open the door, a door that I have been preaching to congregations for some time now, a door that finally was starting to crack open that could lead somewhere. So, yeah, that's the beginning of that story.
Awesome. Well, tell us who you are, where you're from, and an interesting fact.
Well, I'm originally from, my name is Brandon Greene. I'm originally from Las Vegas, Nevada. And other than an interesting fact about me, other than I'm from Las Vegas, Nevada, uh, um, I have a nag for I guess when you say personal finance. I didn't get into personal finance because I was a guru. I got into it because I was terrible at it. And I'll be honest with you, like even I have to watch myself even now to figure those things out. But once I figured out that hey, God does care about my finances and God does care about what I do, that really inspired me to get things in order and also to as I'm learning teach other people. So
Right. Awesome. So, as you know about this show, everybody's listening and ready for some strategies. They heard a beginning of a story, which we're going to get to later on, the conclusion of that one. But let us know a couple strategies that you found to be effective in your faith and sharing the good news.
well, I'll go back to the book that I read and what it emphasizes. So it spends a lot of time talking about the cultivation stage, which I think often the temptation for us is to skip straight to the planting phase, right? We just want to plant the seed at a moment's notice, and we have to realize that evangelism takes time. It's not this quick microwave thing. So probably the first strategy that I would give people is utilize building that relationship, build that relationship. And I will say in regards to workplace evangelism, I think oftentimes we say, well, it's not an appropriate, it's a not an appropriate place to do evangelism. Well, I don't know if it's necessarily that it's an inappropriate place, but maybe we've been doing things that are inappropriate. I mean, if you're going to cubicle, talking to every single person, asking them the famous question, if you were to die today, where would you go? Then yeah, you're gonna get written up. They're gonna report you, to somebody but if we're really seriously trying to build a relationship, finding commonality, um, you know, trying to be a spiritual resource to them, it will open doors like it did for me in my business, and we can actually eventually plant the seed. But it takes time. It takes time to build those relationships. So we can't look at it as a microwave Christianity. We need to look at it as an oven. It takes time to bake, right? So just build relationships with people. Don't be afraid to. Don't be
Right.
afraid to.
Well, and what's the name of the book that you read? Do you remember the name of the?
Going public with your faith.
Okay,
It's
good.
actually a book. You can probably find it. It's from Focus on the Family.
Okay,
Yeah, so you can probably find it on their website. But it's a very
awesome.
good book.
And it's so important because I think a lot of people are working in the workplace and they need to have tools and resources and encouragement to share their
Yeah,
faith and they need examples. And this is great. And Jesus didn't ever say they will know you're my disciples by your words. He said
right.
by your
That's
love for
right.
one another. So that's
Yep.
awesome point.
All right.
So what's the next strategy you got? So we got cultivation, and it's great Jesus used the seeds. He didn't use like the microwave popcorn, like you said. There's no
Right. Yeah.
microwave popcorn.
No, absolutely, absolutely. The second thing is, which I think is, um, we know this, but sometimes um, I, I think it's the elementary things sometimes that we miss out, on some key things. And this, I don't know if this is necessarily really a strategy, but rather just a reminder of utilizing this. Utilize technology. I think that um, you know there are enough people out there that have books on technology is the devil, and just Christians need to be cautious about technology, and I get that. I understand that. Look, but there are so many tools out there, videos and information out there that should be utilized to the glory of God, but they're just sitting there. I mean, I look on some videos and they hardly have any views. Well, it's probably because they're not being shared often. So like there are so much material out there, and I say this because there are a lot of people who feel like they're inadequate to really sit down on a educational level and sit down with somebody and teach them the gospel. Maybe they're not that great at communicating with people, and I get that. I understand that. I've been preaching for almost a decade, and I feel like sometimes I'm inadequate to even speak. So I utilize videos when it's appropriate. So I would just remind people, just utilize the technology that is out there, and there's so much out there. So, and people, that's where people are. They're on Facebook, they're on Twitter, they're on Instagram. So take those videos that are on YouTube and things like that, and just share it with people. you know
Right. Yeah, what's like I was going to go back to the cultivation if you got it, and also for using technology. What are some things that you've done or have found to be successful? For example, cultivating at your workplace or your business, maybe like an example, and then also the technology, something you've done that you're like, hey, and that might get people like, oh, okay, Brandon did this, I can do that, you know.
So yeah, awesome. So I'm trying to think of a time I've done this.
Yeah.
So I've utilized in past studies with people. I've utilized um, video series like "Following the Messiah" from
Uh-huh.
Appen Media. That's a really good one. And the reason why I do that is because I don't like we could spend all day on talking about the fundamentals that every Christian needs to know, right? How to worship and all that stuff. But what I want to start with is pure understanding of what a disciple of Jesus is, and one of the
Right.
best ways to do that is to show them who Jesus was, who Jesus is, right? So utilizing series like Following the Messiah, following the life of Jesus, and seeing how he interacted with people and stuff like that can really help people start to cultivate a character base of who Jesus is and what I need to be. So sometimes I've used that. I've utilized different books, resources, one of which I'm studying right now with actually our young adults in our young adult class. I'm utilizing a book from a brother in Christ, Tim Lewis, The Domino Effect.
Okay.
I've utilized that in the past with studies with new converts, especially because it really helps people understand that every decision that I make is important. Every decision that I make is important. So making the decision of following Jesus, that's extremely important. And it's baby steps. It's baby
Right.
steps. It's not we just figure everything out. It's baby steps. It takes some time. So I've utilized that at times as well. So I don't know if that answers the question, but
Yeah, it does. Yeah.
um,
What about like technology? What's some things like do you use Facebook or what's some things you use for
yeah,
technology?
I utilize Messenger. A lot of the
Okay.
people that I've talked to about introducing the gospel to, I've used Messenger. I've used anything, sharing videos on my posts, sharing videos on people's Messenger. I'm constantly doing that with my own family. I got some family members who some of them are not even Christians, and some of them were, and they have walked away for various reasons and challenges of believing, that the Bible is the inspired word of God. So I just share videos with people, and
Awesome.
sometimes they view them, sometimes they don't. But the point is, I'm constantly always keeping that line of communication open with people through social media. So that's one way that I typically try to reach people. So
That's one of your tools for cultivation is the technology.
hmm
Work
yeah,
that ground,
yeah,
it's some good
and
stuff.
right. And the other thing too is, there are, and this will probably go into my third point, which I'll hold up. I'll hold up.
Yeah,
I
go.
want to
We'll
get to my
go
third
into it,
point.
man. Go
We'll go,
into the
okay,
third
okay.
point.
So,
Yeah, yeah.
so my third point is getting good at following up with people,
Hmm.
getting good with following up with people. I think that oftentimes we can be really good at, maybe starting the conversation, but we may not be so good in following up. I'm a business owner, right? So if I don't follow up with people who are interested in my business, I don't get any business, right? So I mean, and I think sometimes, of course, I understand we as a church, we're not a business necessarily, but we operate similarly to businesses, right? So we got to follow up with people. So having a good follow up system is really powerful. I utilize a marketing system where I'm following up with people through email. I'm following up with people through text messages, through social media, and I have a CRM system that keeps me organized to make sure that I'm doing that. And I'm like, well, why can't I utilize this for the glory of God? And that's exactly what I'm doing now. I'm using that as a tool to make sure that I'm following up with people that I'm communicating with. And you'll be surprised that people, because that spark is still in their mind, and that curiosity is still in their mind, they're still wanting more and more. So you got to get good at following up with people and utilizing technology that helps you do that. And there's
Right.
so much out there, but get good at following up with people.
That's good. Yeah, you can like I think schedule even emails with Gmail or something for
Yeah,
the future
yeah, you
for
can.
somebody.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right.
That's
Hmm.
so what's like when in a follow up do you what do you let's say you're doing an email follow up. How would you do that? You met somebody, they're interested, now you're going to follow up. What's something that you do for that?
Well, I'll give you an example of
Okay.
kind of what we've done over. I I would say this is probably a short period of time. When we have people who come in to the church for the first time, those are always like usually those people kind of just fall through the cracks often, right?
Right.
Um, you know, so what I try to do typically is I'll send them an email, just basically one thanking them for coming, because I mean that's a big deal. I mean they could have done anything, but they decided to come and check y'all out, check us out. So one, thanking them for coming, and two, keeping, is there anything that we can help you with? Is there anything that we can do for you? Because people, when they're genuinely asked that question, they know, like, oh man, these people actually do care. Like I'm not just a number to them. I'm really somebody that they want to spend time with. And I try to also set up a time to like just sit down and meet them, like outside of the building, whether it be lunch or coffee or whatever, and just get to know them as a genuine person. And of course, those spiritual conversations will come up, but again, I'm trying to build that relationship with people. So one thing that you don't want to do is just make too much general. Oh, how do you even say the word? I can't even think of the word.
I don't
Um,
know.
too many. Don't use general statements that are almost like closed statements, like just thanks for coming, leave it at that. hopefully we'll see you again. Like, no,
Right. Okay.
you need to keep the line of communications open.
Right.
And the way you do that is not just invite them to something, but ask them, hey, can we meet up somewhere? Or, hey,
Mm.
would you be interested in this? So keeping that open communication, right? Um, uh, I don't know if I'm making sense, but yeah.
Yeah, that's
So
good.
yeah, you don't want to make statements that automatically are like, okay, well, I guess they're not that interested in me, so that's what I would do. That's what I would
Yeah,
focus
yeah.
on.
You might not say, "Do you want a Bible study?" You might want to
Right,
say, let's go to lunch. Let's just chat about
right,
life." And then
yeah,
in that they can be like, "Oh, I don't know how to solve this problem, or I'm having this difficult time." I've had that same problem, but one thing helped me get through that. When Jesus said this thing,
yeah,
would you like to hear a little more about that? They're like, "Oh, really? Oh, that's interesting. I didn't know he said that." That's a
yeah.
Bible
See,
study.
we often, for some reason, we think that evangelism is just telling them how to be saved, right? When evangelism is about making disciples of Jesus. So yes, the salvation piece definitely plays a part, but people develop relationships with God even before they ever hit the water.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes we forget that. Like
Right.
they're in the dating phase, right? Before they get into the actual marriage, they're in the dating phase. So spend time with them in the dating phase.
Hmm.
Let them fall in love with Jesus naturally, not superficially. And I think
Right.
sometimes we forget that. Like they're developing a relationship with God even before they make the commitment.
Well, it's like the parable of the seeds. There's multiple seeds Jesus talked about that fall on soil. One of them
Hmm.
is seeds that fall on soil, but they don't have any depth. They don't understand.
Right.
A lot of times, they don't even. Some of the people you talked about who may have fallen away, they may not have understood who Jesus was, and they
Yeah.
may not have chose to follow Jesus. They might have chose the wrong reason to follow him, which was like fear or something else. Love is how we follow and keep that going. Love is what keeps the relationship going, not fear,
Yeah.
things like that. So I think if you're that seed, what it did is it grew. It was excited about Jesus, but it had very
Hmm.
shallow roots, which means it didn't really comprehend or understand. And when it got persecuted, when people were like, "Oh, you believe in that Jesus guy," it fell over. It died.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's so critical. Is like you said that you got to cultivate that. You got to make it strong and really awesome, man. So tell us. We've got three strategies here. We've got cultivation, which is get that soil ready, build those
Mhm.
relationships. It's not just the worst thing you like is the salesperson when you go to a car dealership, right? And they don't like you at all. They're coming out to you
Yep.
and they're like, okay, what
Hmm.
car do you want? And like
Right.
we don't want to be a religious salesman. Okay,
Right.
what salvation do you want? It's more like you
Hmm.
want to have that relationship with them as a friend because that's what Jesus did. So yeah,
Hmm.
cultivation is awesome. And then use technology as one of those tools of cultivation. And then follow up, which is critical, right?
Hmm.
Critical. They'll know how many
Right.
salesmen have followed up with you. Like in a car dealership. Maybe they did, maybe they didn't. But like if they followed up, it's like, "Hello, insert name. Glad
Yeah.
you came
Right.
to the thing." So
Yep.
you got to
Yeah.
follow up. You got to follow
Yeah.
up because if you care about, I mean, when's the last time you called someone you loved? If you just call them
Right.
once and never call them again, I mean, that's not a
That's
relationship.
not a. Yeah.
That's
Exactly.
it.
Yeah.
So those are the
Hmm.
three things you mentioned today, which are awesome. Now, let's hear the end of that story, and then maybe another story if you got one.
Sure. So like I said, opening that door in that relationship. It's so interesting when you're helping somebody with other, sometimes personal matters. They open up to everything with you. So I built trust with them, and then over really just a short period of time, eventually he wanted to have an actual Bible study. And here's the unique thing: because we had all those spiritual conversations beforehand, I really didn't have to spend, several Bible studies for him to get it. It was just one. It was just one. Because all
Yeah,
he really needed at that time was just to know, okay, what do I do to begin my relationship with Jesus? And
right,
so all I had to do was just take him to the book of Acts, Acts chapter 2, have him read that chapter, and ultimately he figured it out. Oh, I got to be baptized. So what, and so he asked pretty much like the Ethiopian eunuch, like, what do I do now? So I explained it to him, or he was able to explain. I didn't even have to really explain it to him. He got it, right? And that very day, the other minister, Jovan, we met up at the church building, and we baptized him that very day. And sure, it's been rocky, because he has a lot of just bombarded by the world and the
Hmm.
things that go on. But the point is, I mean, I'm still developing that relationship with him, still developing, but the fact is, he obeyed the gospel because I spent time with him,
Right.
not because not because I said the right things or gave the right verbiage. He generally saw the love of Jesus in the relationship that we had, and he still sees that even through the challenges. So
Right.
that's awesome. The other story that I have is not they got in the water story, but another point of making that you need to develop relationships. There's another client of mine. Um, she had some really horrible things that have recently happened to her and her son. And um, again, this is another client of mine that I help with personal finance, and I wasn't trying to necessarily go out of my way to plant the seed in her, but over the conversations, she started opening up to me. She even said at one point, "Man, you're a total stranger. I don't know how I'm opening up and I'm even crying to you and stuff like that. Like, how is this happening?" And in my mind, I'm thinking like, this is a God thing. This is a God thing. She's
Right.
opening up. And so because of that, she opened up to me later on about a very serious matter that happened in her life. And I told her that, I'm here for you if you ever have any questions, if you ever want to sit down. And she's taken me up on that offer a few times. So it's still developing, and I'm hoping that leads to, another disciple of Jesus. But because I built that relationship, because she trusts me, she's willing to open up to me, that may lead to something, and I can only give, praise and honor to God. So I'm hoping for more interactions like that
Right.
as I continue to build relationships with people. So
Isn't that great? And you get to see God working right in front of you. A lot of
yeah,
times.
you
It's awesome.
do, you do. But make sure you follow up with people. Make sure
Yeah,
you follow up with
that's that's right. And I'm sure that God follows up, but it would be better if we follow up with the person
yeah, right. Let
ourselves.
let him utilize us to follow up with
Yeah,
people. Yes.
that's right. So what we got some strategies here and some stories, and I like that they're workplace stories, they're business stories because that's the real world, man. A lot of people are working, a lot of
Mhm.
people are out there, and they need to have examples of people who are doing it in the workplace, not
Yeah.
on the street, maybe not in church, but just somewhere, where they're Monday through Friday.
Yeah.
So
Exactly. Yeah.
so that's good. So what's a call to action if you're going to talk to the audience listening? They've got some strategies from you. Let's send them out with your words of encouragement and like motivation. So what do you got for everybody for your call to action?
My call to action is just simply go and meet somebody at your workplace. You don't have to be weird. You don't have to say or ask them anything crazy. All you got to do is just befriend them. That's it. And it doesn't matter what their background may be. It doesn't matter if they struggle with sin, because guess what? They're in the world. They're going to struggle with sin, right? Just meet them. Just say hi. Just start developing that relationship with people. And you're going to be very surprised and amazed, I guarantee you, of what you'll find out, what they'll be willing to open up to you about. And you'll be surprised that eventually, if you ask permission, you may be able to start planting some nuggets of truth to them that can help them with their day-to-day life. And they'll be amazed as well as you, really how God really does help us through our day-to-day lives.
That's right. So instead of scaring them with hell,
Right.
we should add an O to it and turn it into
Right.
hello.
Yes.
Not hell,
Yes.
hello. And then
Right.
with
Hello.
hello, you
Right.
can get to them.
Right. Exactly. Exactly.
Awesome.
Right.
Well, thanks, Brandon, for being on the show, man. I really appreciate it. And these words of wisdom, you've learned from God and reading and stuff. It's been great. Hopefully, the people listening will be able to take this. I mean, today, literally, if they're listening at work, they could just look around and be like, I've never said hello to so-and-so.
Yeah.
It's just going to
Right.
say hello.
Yeah.
That's all you got to say. Hello. Hey, how you doing? That's it.
Right. Don't just go to work because you get a paycheck. Go because God has placed you there to build relationships with these people.
Amen.
You've been listening to Be Brave. The world right now is a crazy place, and sharing the love of God is the most important thing we can do right now. We hope you've enjoyed the show. Make sure to like, rate, and review. And we'll be back soon. But in the meantime, hit up gobebrave.org. Remember, the love of God is the most powerful force in the universe. Learn how to love like Jesus. See you next time.